Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, we talk about looking at things at face level and then looking deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And you can still go deeper and still keep uncovering things. And, when you look at it, I've said before, and it's a saying that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything just gets redone in different ways and in different flavors, so to speak.
It does, different flavors for everything. So it just depends on which branch of the rabbit hole do you want to go down.
Exactly. So we see a lot of things that might not appear to be interconnected till we look deeper and get a deeper understanding into the psyche of the people that contributed to so much of our culture, especially here in the West. Now, anything that we see here in the West, there are counterparts also in the East, and especially when we start going deep into Taoist philosophy and QiGong, medical qigong, especially, you can see a lot of the same things, just basically given different labels, and perhaps a slightly different way of looking at things. So, most people will probably be familiar with at least the concept of the 7 seals of Revelation. And why 7? Why the numerology? 7 is a number that comes up time and time and time again in the Bible. Also, 12. And 12 is another one of these numbers that pops up everywhere. We have 12 months, right? We have 12 signs of the zodiac. Did we really have 12 apostles? Or is that part of telling us a deeper story? And if there was just 12 apostles, quote unquote, were they picked to also represent something? Each one of them representing something different. The 12 tribes of Israel. As we talked about the precession of the equinox, we actually kind of go retrograde through each of the signs of, the 12 signs of the zodiac in the precession of the equinox. And we could go on and on and on with this. So this time we're going to be focusing on 7. Why 7? Why 7? Well, there's also 7 lampstands in Revelation, right? 7 lampstands, 7 seals. The menorah, by the way, has, 7 lights on it as well. We had 7 churches of Revelation. And we have 7 trumpets. Yes, trumpets.
That's cute.
And just, again, talking about symbolism. Isn't it interesting? I mean, there's so much symbolism. Well, we have 7 major chakras. The 7 chakras that lie basically along our spinal cord. Each one of them responsible for a different plexus, a different nerve plexus. And correspondingly, you see on the other side over here, the 7 ancient planets. And we see that they're also correlated, again, to the days of the week. This is how deeply it's all so deeply ingrained in us that we don't even notice it. And there's different ways of relating the planets to the chakras and the chakras to the planets and the trumpets and the seals. And interesting, too, because, when a chakra is quote unquote sealed, it's not really functioning if it's sealed off, right? And as we go through the apocalypse, the unveiling and everything being revealed, there's a greater knowledge that's being given to us. And that's, the double-edged sword of the internet, for instance, which obviously is used to watch every move and control, but then also it allows us to share as well. So the earth itself has chakras as well. And we can attest to the power of the first chakra over here, that Mount Shasta. That was really an amazing area to experience.
It was absolutely fabulous. It set off something in my energy. It made me feel that blissful feeling the entire time we were there.
So when we say the earth has chakras, it's because the earth is a living being. just as are the other planets and the sun and every star out there. Everything's alive. Everything has consciousness. And the ancients knew this. And somehow in our modern Western science, we had forgotten all that, except for those that study the ancient ways. And so the ancients had the 7 planets. And these were the planets that they could see. And so they also include the sun and the moon in this, along with Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. These are the ones, and again, planet is basically means a wandering star, because they noticed that these moved independently of the stars. The stars kind of stayed in a fixed spot, and these guys were wanderers, and these guys moved about.
Indeed, they did, and they all have a very individual personality, and it's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, they're beings. They are beings. And so, like, we lost track of that. And think about how in the ancient times, when we were so much more connected to everything, we were more tied to them. When we look at Venus every night, it almost feels like we're looking at an old friend now. Because, for the most part, our entertainment's just looking at stars at night and just chilling and enjoying the sounds and the sights of a beautiful evening.
It is, and it gets familiar after a while. It's almost like we can feel her essence coming down on us now.
Well, yeah, and just imagine how when you were in harmony, with the earth and all of creation, everything would have seemed a lot different. You could sense the life all around you. And, we have gotten so torn apart from that whole way of thinking. And, how many people spend almost all day long just, staring at their phones, walking straight ahead, sometimes walking off of cliffs, taking selfies and falling down because they don't even know where they are, and it's a sad part of our society. So, the 7 planets, the 7 ancient energies, beings, very, very fascinating study here. And so when we look at, they have their own symbols. And so this is all part of the Western mystery tradition. And also they have their own combination of elements. And you could see that as well. And here we are breaking down into the tree of life as well. So there's a lot of different ways to look at these things. And they have their own aspects, their own personalities. Fascinating stuff to look at. Now, Revelation 1:20, the mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. The 7 candlesticks that thou sawest are the 7 churches. And also, this again relates to astrotheology in so many ways. There's so many different ways of looking at this. And I have a lot of links for you guys. And so this is the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And it's the planetary aspects of them. And so this was taken very, very seriously, very seriously. In fact, it was thought that you could bring a lot of negative energy on yourself if you related things in a negative way, a disrespectful way. So we see the different planets, and then each one of them has an angel that's assigned to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very curious how much it can be intertwined. And this stuff is a true science. Granted, we have lost a lot of information, but the information that we do have, we are piecing together little by little. So you could really, truly have a life map with your star chart.
Most definitely. Again, and the 3 wise men that came for the birth of Christ, they came from the east, and many scholars believe that they were Chaldean. Or coming from like Persia over in that area as well. And they had all this knowledge because they were the magi. They were the origin, the root of the word magic.
That's interesting. Magi, very interesting.
So there's different grades in these societies and these, somewhat secret societies, and you're allowed certain knowledge as you go and as you prove yourself, and then you get entrusted with more and more and more. And then, of course, in these days, so much stuff has just gone public, and it's just out there for everybody to look at. And yeah, it is complicated. Like what Cindy does with doing the Vedic charts is very complicated. There's a lot to it. There's so much to memorize.
There is a lot to memorize. You got the houses and their personalities, the planets and their personalities, and you got the degrees and their personalities, the zodiacs and their personalities. And there's even more to it on top of that. And then you blend those and you have different conjunctions and different everything. So I'm definitely a work in progress. And I humbly say I do just simply practice.
But she's good at it. It comes natural to her. And she's gotten so much rave reviews from everybody. She's done their charts. They love her. And I love her too. And when we look at this, so let me just read you some of this so you can understand if you haven't ever looked into this. So let's just first go over evocation and invocation. And so when you evoke with an E, you're bringing something to you, but not necessarily in you. So, you could evoke, if you're looking at the magic of Solomon, you might end up casting a circle, a protective circle for yourself, and you might also have a sphere into which you are going to contain a certain spirit to bring it to you to ask it questions, because you're going to want to gain, usually it's done to gain knowledge. And so you could evoke something. Then there's invoking, and invoking is taking the energies into yourself, which changes you. So, there are invocations that we can do as well. And, we could even look at the mantra that I shared with you guys a while ago, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. In Sanskrit, that just basically means, may I be a blessing to the world, and, may everything I do contribute to the, love, light, happiness of all living beings, and may all beings everywhere be happy. It's a beautiful invocation. And so, we're taking in that energy into us, and then we're sending that energy out into the world. And so in magic, Western occultism, there's invocation, in which we take an energy into us, and evocation, in which we call an energy to us, but don't take it into us. Like, obviously, you would never want to invoke a demon unless you are absolutely crazy. Although I would never evoke a demon either, because, I'm just not going to go down that road. It's not in me. Although there are those that would do that as well. And it can be dangerous business, most definitely, because all these intelligences, all these beings, all the planetary aspects and all, they're all alive and intelligent. And, they're on a different density of consciousness than us, but they're very much alive.
Very much alive, with personalities, traits, quirks, and everything.
So we see in this lesson, and this is a lesson from the Golden Dawn, we will begin to understand the planetary aspects and see how they relate to ourselves as individuals and to our personal lives. Because again, it's the microcosm and the macrocosm. As within, so without, as above, so below. We've heard this, and it's reflective. And that's because this is the programming of this holographic universe that we live in, this matrix that we live in, find ourselves in. It's the way this matrix works, and it's fractal in nature, as we've talked about so many times. So also we will see how they relate from a magical standpoint, which will later be used in the rite of invocation. This is vital information for anyone who wishes to do evocative magic. In addition, the understanding of astrology and other important aspects of the Golden Dawn system are equally important to the understanding of such aspects. In the Zelator grades, some time was spent in the study of the names of the planets in Hebrew, as well as their ruling angel, spirit, or intelligence. One point that needs to be emphasized in this lesson is that the planets are not the Sephiroth. And so the Sephiroth are those spheres that we see on the Tree of Life. The Sephiroth are much larger in scope and dimension, whereas the planets are considered the heavens of Asya. And if you recall in the lesson of the four worlds, which we didn't talk about here, but that's something we could do in a different one, we have the divine name of God in Azaluth. So there are many divine names of God, and this is all based in Judeo-Christian tradition, but it also, as you're going to see, has a mixture of, as we were talking about before, the Egyptian in there, as well as some, corresponding elements Greco-Roman. So we see how this stuff all kind of goes together. But again, it's as our consciousness has evolved over the ages. So, okay, so the archangelic name in Bria, the choir of angels in Yetzirah, and in Asya we have the planets, the heavens of Asya. So, in a different, not really reality, but on a different plane of existence, the planets are like us, moving about and having their lives, and, just like we are. They're completely individuals, but they're so big, and this is an electromagnetic universe. And some will say magnetic first. Everybody has their different aspects that they just grab a hold of, and it's, one of the things that, gets their meter going, so to speak. I got lost in that track.
Well, as far as the planets having their own personalities and stuff, to the point where they have their own quirks, and sometimes they sit with planets that they don't like, and in a chart that can cause problems in that area of life for that person.
Yeah, just like there's certain people that you might not get along with, as well as others that you're just immediately drawn to. It's the same way with the planets. So he has a warning here. It says, notice planetary and Olympic spirits should never be used without caution, and then only under the direction of the planetary intelligence. Actual safe methods are taught only in the second order. Memorization is all that is required at this grade. So, you're given a strong warning not to delve into stuff that you don't understand at the same time, because there's different rituals to bring in some planetary influences into you. So say that, there were some aspects of yourself that might be overdone. Maybe you have a little bit too much, put it simple, of the warring aspect of Mars in you, and you wanted to kind of pacify that. There's certain rituals that can be done to kind of, negate that aspect. And so it's fascinating to look at all this. And so this gets into each one of them, and there's so much that corresponds. So when we look at Saturn, for instance, if we look at Saturn, the Greek name is Cronos. If you guys might remember that, right? Father Time, right? And so it gets into the different deities here, like Nephesis, Ta, Harpocrates, the child Horus, Isis, Ea, Ishtar, Shiva, Brahma, Saturnus, Hera, Cronos. Gets into other corresponding things such as gemstones, metals, herbs, and even trees, and then of course colors. Every color is a frequency as well. And it goes into the Hebrew name, Shabbatai, and then the Olympic spirit, Erythor, which we could, also look at as like an angelic spirit. And then it goes into the animals, the goat, the ass. Oh, calling Saturn an ass there. Antelope, goose, peacock, dove, bat, spiders, and incense as well. So Saturn is referred to as the god that gives birth to her children and then consumes them afterwards. And in Greek, Saturn is referred to as Cronos, otherwise known as Father Time. In Hebrew, we refer to Saturn as the sphere of Shabbatai. The Olympic planetary spirit is Erythor. Basic description of Saturn is that of loftiness, sometimes considered as mourning or brooding. The force of constriction and crystallization. Saturn has a strong affinity with the land of the depths of the earth, the advancing of age, and with the long passage of time. It also has an effect on our artistic creativity and the bringing of ideas into material form. Saturn can be a very positive or negative planet depending on how it is used. It deals magically with invisibility. It also deals with karma, and it's attributed to a certain sphere as well. So it's referred to sometimes as the parent of faith because from it, its essential nature, faith, does proceed. And it has an elemental affinity with Earth. The planetary figure is the triangle. And then it also goes into physiologically as well. So interesting stuff.
It is very interesting when you start learning about their things that they can and can't do for you. And Saturn, what I think is really interesting about Saturn is if it's placed right in your house, and say if you have a car accident, Saturn's effects can actually lessen or slow down any malefic or bad things that happen in that car accident. So, I mean, it has its good points too, even if it isn't in a bad place.
Exactly. And that's what we see with this. So even though these are very, high level beings, they're still just like us. Mm-hmm. Everything in this universe, this is a universe of free will, and everything has its light and shadow aspects.
Absolutely, it sure does. And, just to look at them like human, just like you and I, we all make mistakes. We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses.
So interesting, and I won't go through the entire thing. We're just going to touch on some, but I'll have the links for you guys. So, you also have ascribed to Saturn the goddess Isis, as known as the Morning One, the maternal mother who gives birth to the world and all creation through restriction. She fits better with the sphere, a different sphere than that of Saturn, though she at times has been attributed to Saturn combination as well. So it gets into relationships and things like that. And then we have Jupiter next. And Jupiter, Zeus, we know the Olympic spirit is Bethor. The Hebrew name is Zadok. And the animal is the eagle, as well as some others. And then it gets into the color, blue, a light royal blue. And as you see here, the shepherd's staff is one of the symbols, as well as the thunderbolt, the trident, the royal scepter, the oak leaf crown. We see how that's like, there's so many different mythologies that then become connected.
Mm-hmm. They totally become connected. And Jupiter is like our wisdom. It's our honorable wisdom. Jupiter is expansive, and Jupiter is, a lot of people say, is like Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. You can see that. So, it's fascinating to look at all this. And one of the things that can be done to invoke these energies is the drawing of a sigil. And that could be done, even for making an amulet or something along those lines, which then could be worn on the person to help bring that energy into you and into your life, depending on what you need. And there's a couple links in here that I have on how you could draw sigils as well.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. So, I would just use common sense and caution when you're calling energies into you.
Yeah, most definitely. So known as Father of the Gods, as well as the Sustainer of Life, Creator of Blessings, so many different ones. It's also ascribed to the Egyptian god Ma'at, which is that which is true. Law, justice, truth. There's so many things that we see ascribed to it. And then we would move on over here. Going on next down, we're going to be looking at Mars. And so, Mars, it's pretty obvious. We always think of Mars or Ares as the god of war, but it's more than just that as well.
Mars, I like to look at Mars as more of a protector influence. Mars does what the king says. Mars likes to follow orders. Mars is very loyal. Mars can be extremely protective and gives us courage.
Some of the other deities associated is Heru, Behutet, Horus of Edfu, Sekhmet, Ares, Mars, Ninurta, Nuska, Agni, and Durga.
Very interesting, yeah.
And the animals, we know we associate with the ram often, but there's other things associated as well. Scorpions, serpents, werewolves, salamanders. And, it's so interesting when we look at the history of all this and see how the mythologies, a lot of times they're interconnected, and sometimes, things don't apparently fit, but when we look at it in the bigger context, there's just so much as far as the similarities that you can see. So, one of the other Egyptian deities is Sekhmet, the great goddess, sacred one, the powerful one, she who is red garmented, she who dominates the mighty flame. You also see the Eye of Ra, right? We've seen that before many, many times. And as far as, there you go, the planetary figure is the Pentagon. An interesting connection when you start thinking of the Pentagon, right? In America associated with war and the military. Yeah, there's no coincidences here. I mean, those in the know, they always are utilizing the planetary influences all the time.
They are. And one really simple way to, like, if you have a planet that you think is giving you problems, is to talk to that planet, pray to that planet influence. That's like the easiest, fastest way that I know of.
And then we have the sun and Helios in Greece, and Hebrew name is Shemesh, and the Olympic spirit is Ak, and the animals, the lion is one, also the tiger. The lion comes to mind right away, but we see others as well, like the Sphinx and the Phoenix. And, of course, the sun, we could just start with the sun. There's so many different places to go with this. And obviously it is the life bringer to us. And in regards to the sun, the primary deity is Ra, the great one, self-generator, the old one, creator of the breath of life, father of the gods, lord of light, divine love, radiant face. It goes on, king of heavens. And the sun is obviously, everybody, when they think about horoscopes, it's what's your sun sign.
Your soul. Sun is your soul. Sun is the king. Sun kind of controls everything.
It is. And of course we have the Son of God.
Yes, we do.
And also associated with the Savior gods. So as well. And it's so preeminent and predominant when we look at the Golden Dawn, because all the time you see in the rituals Christ, and you also see Osiris. They're so intertwined. And then we would go next, obviously, to Luna and the moon. And, we've talked about that. Is the moon really real? Is it a ship? Is it a mothership? Was it brought here? It's so interesting, too. How there are legends, the fact that the moon, there was a time before the moon, before it came. But actually right here, we're looking at Venus. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, we're looking at Venus first before the moon. So the Venus is the goddess of love, and it's equated to so many other deities as well.
Yeah, Venus is beauty. Venus is appreciation of material things. Venus is like, I really enjoy Venus. I love her energy. So
also other deities: Hathor, Bast, Aphrodite, Venus, Ishtar, Ushas. And we had talked about Ishtar, Inanna, Astarte, Asherah, as being the consort of Yahweh, El, as well. And so, Venus, as Cindy was alluding to, Venus is joyous. It's benign. Good luck with love or money comes from Venus. It's very much Lakshmi.
Oh, very much so. She's just so beautiful.
Yep. So, and then we have Venus, and then we move on to Luna. Oh, no, we're going to Mercury here. Sorry, I'm out of order, guys. So, yeah, Mercury is, well, there's so much we could talk about Mercury and all the different things that go with it. And if we're looking at the deities, you got Tehuti, and you have Thoth, Hermes, obviously Mercury, Nabu, and not Nabu as in Star Wars, and Ganesha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mercury is communication. Mercury is our imagination, our writing abilities, reading abilities, stuff like this.
Exactly. And the Olympic spirit is Ophiel. And so then we would go on to the moon there. And obviously the moon, the three major signs, you think of your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And the moon is like our emotions, whereas the sun is our soul. Moon is a reflection of your soul. That's the emotions, and that's what I look at in Vedic astrology, because your emotions make up you, and to understand those can be very helpful.
So we see it as far as the animals. We see the owl, the raven, but we also see bears and horses and elephants. You can see how, it depends on the people, the tribe, the background. Other deities, Kansu, Ta'ert, Artemis, Selene, Hecate, Diana, Sign, Shiva, and we saw Shiva also elsewhere as well. So a lot of them they kind of intermingle as well. So, Luna is obviously very, very important and does affect us all because it is so close to us, and we are made of water, and it has gravitational pull on the planet, has on us as well.
Yeah, the moon does. And moon, I think, is probably the most important influence on our human body.
And then we have the nodes of the moon.
Thus, Rahu and Ketu are the north and south nodes of the moon. They're not planets, they're influences, and they have strong influences on us.
Very strong. And very important looking at their position in your chart. Would you say as important as sun, moon, and rising?
Yeah, it's another thing that I can do individually, set apart from. Rahu is kind of malefic, where Rahu, wherever it sits, wants more and more and more of everything, and Ketu is more of a spiritual disconnect, yet very spiritual place. So wherever Ketu sits, usually you can be disconnected from that.
And so, this gets into planetary intelligences and their sigils in the Western occult tradition. And, the theory is that if humans have souls, right, then surely the planets in the celestial realm, since they're so much more immense than us, and perhaps supporting even more life on different dimensions than we could comprehend, then they must have souls as well. And so the thought is, because they exist closer to God and are constructed of a much more rarefied matter, it was therefore logical to occultists that the planets also possessed their own souls, their own ways, and their own personalities.
Yeah, they do. They have their very own personalities, and they're each individual with emotions and feelings and everything.
And this is on drawing planetary seals from the Cameas. And there's different ways of doing it. You could do it through the Rosary Cross as well. And so I'll have the links for you guys. Just wanted to cover this, see if this would be anything that you would find informative, hopefully, and interesting. There's always so much more to see than just things on a very, very superficial level.
There is. I mean, there's layers and layers and layers of information out there when it comes to these planetary alignments and planetary things. There's just so much. It's almost never ending.
So as always, my friends, thank you guys so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. And like, share, subscribe. God bless and namaste.
God bless and namaste.